We hit our good friends over in the great state of Oregon, the Oregon Ducks. The first year in the Big Ten, the champions of the Big Ten were the Oregon Ducks, but they got a lot to replace, Joe. I mean, we can name all the names offensively and defensively, do add a lot of big additions like Donovan, Alexander, and Johnson. When you look at Oregon this year, man, I mean, it's tough to repeat even when you have everybody returning, but how do you see this year going for Oregon?
The starting conversation point that we've had in every single preview has been, who are they losing? Who are they bringing in? They're bringing in a very big group of transfer portal players that are going to be important starters for them this upcoming year. They're losing a lot of guys that are going to go on to be highly drafted in the 2025 NFL draft that started at key positions. Derek Harmon, Jamari Caldwell at their defensive line, Jordan Birch as well, Josh Connerly and Johnny Cornelius, both of their offensive tackles, Tez Johnson, Dylan Gabriel, Jordan James. There is a large core of guys at very, very important positions that are gone, that are now going to be replaced by players that are pretty inexperienced or completely new faces. I don't say this, Blake, to incite any fear. I have high faith and high expectations for what Oregon can do. I trust Dan Lanning. I think he's a great coach. But when you have this many transfers starting at tackle and at safety and at running back, at multiple offensive line spots, it does tend to lead to a high variance of outcomes. It can lead to a lot of issues because you're hoping a guy who was recruited and developed at another program can step up and play for your team. I don't think it will cause problems, but that is the first thing that stands out to me, Blake, is that they are relying on a very talented transfer portal haul, but a lot of transfer portal players to have significant impacts.
So let's touch on that. So, look, I have 5 key points when it comes to them. Let's talk about the transfers. I'm with you at tackle, right? Like when you go into the portal and you get Alex Harkle and you bring in Isaiah World. Now, a lot of people want Isaiah World. I mean, let's not act like Oregon was the only one offering. Ohio State, LSU, Georgia, Texas, a lot of teams offered World in that portal process, okay? I'm interested to see what happens with him because he was so highly coveted out of the portal. He goes to Oregon. The last time Oregon went in the portal and got a tackle, it benefited them, and it worked for them. Let's see if it happens again. Here's where I will push back a little bit on the portal thing for them. Here's why. I look at the defensive line, Breland, one of the top defenders in 2 year ago's class. You got Gray. You have Elijah Rushing. Joe, that's all guys that redshirted last year for Oregon that were top 25, top 50 guys coming out of high school, right? Like top high-level elite recruits. What I do think here for me, and I'll get to offense, defensively, I don't know if they're not better. I do think that the portal haul for them defensively might actually benefit them a little bit because now you have a year or two with that elite defensive line that you recruited 2 years ago. I mean, Joe, 2 years ago, we were talking about the recruiting class, if you remember, and we were like, dude, a couple years, this D-line's going to absolutely take over. We literally called it Georgia out west because it's exactly what Kirby did. Did he not? I mean, I remember that being the storyline. I don't know if defensively and what was the biggest issue that they had down the stretch, which was what, Joe? They could not stop the running game. They couldn't do it to save their life. In the beginning of the season, I said, Joe, they look too leaky to me. And we had that discussion. We came back in the middle of the season. I mean, okay, they won against Ohio State. Then it continued to matriculate. They've got a lot of young, talented freshmen that have redshirted going into year 2. They got a lot of big defensive linemen returning. You're bringing in Thieneman. You're bringing in Bear Alexander. Can he finally hit his ceiling? Can he be the one that finally – can that be the place with Dan Lanning where he finally hits the season? I don't know. Let's hope that it is. But here's the thing for me. As high as I am on them defensively because of how they stocked up in high school recruiting, and Joe, they did that at DB this year and how much they loaded up there. The question for me is, can Evan Stewart stand up offensively? Is he a true number one? Does DK Moore or McClellan have to be one of those young freshman standouts that comes out of nowhere. Now, you went in the portal offensively and got Malik Benson. My worries for them has nothing to do defensively. Okay, they were leaking the running game a year ago. I think that that's going to get better based off the recruiting and development that they're doing. Offensively, at the skill position and at quarterback is I say concern. Let me not say concern. It's my biggest question marks with them. Joe, I've told you my thoughts on Evan Stewart. I don't know if he can be a true number one dude. I do actually believe that Malik Benson of Florida State, DJU was throwing him the football. If dude had a quarterback, I don't know. We'll talk about Malik Benson if we need to. It's more of what you have under center and what you have out wide that we just need to see what happens here. And by the way, you're replacing an entire running game damn near too.
So there's two things that you brought up that like caught my attention that I want to focus on here. Quarterback, I'm not worried about. Quarterback, I don't have any feeling that there is going to be.
You just think Dante Moore just comes in after what happened at UCLA?
It has less. It is a number of things why I have faith that their quarterback situation is at the very least will have a high floor, and that it's not going to be a liability. If there is a liability with this Oregon team that holds them back and that costs them a game or two, it's going to be something else. It's not going to be the quarterback position for two reasons. You have a former 5-star quarterback who had ups and downs as a true freshman, but still had flashes of supreme talent, arm talent, touch, timing, all the things that you look for in a premier starter, and the types of tools that are coveted by Will Stein in this offense. And I also think more importantly, Blake, we have had back-to-back quarterbacks that when they have started and they stepped in Bo Nix and Kenny Dillingham's scheme, and then eventually in Will Stein's scheme, and then Dylan Gabriel and Stein's scheme, there was no drop-off. There was no issue. There were very few, if any, games, maybe the Rose Bowl with Dylan Gabriel, where the quarterback play wasn't good enough. I feel pretty confident that Will Stein is going to figure out how to set up Dante Moore to succeed and for him to play well. They do need to get bigger impacts from this receiving group. William McBride pointed out, can you get a guy like Jurian Dickey, who was highly recruited? I remember breaking down his high school highlights when I was doing a little bit more recruiting coverage a few years ago, and I thought he had some potential, and I'm shocked that he hasn't contributed more because he is a very gifted player. They have the bodies. They just need to step up. But speaking of bodies, here is where my attention goes, and this is purely an inference. This is an outsider's view on this before any Oregon fans jump on me and try to provide any context. When you have to bring in 3 new offensive linemen, Emmanuel Pregnon, Isaiah World, and Alex Harkey. One, living by the portal on offensive line has not paid good results. It just hasn't.
True.
You brought in a Johnny Cornelius who played for the team that I played for at Rhode Island, and he was great, but that was one starter on your offensive line. When you have 3 starters from other teams, it has not been an approach, a roster building approach that has produced consistent results. It is all over the board. Look at the teams that have had to do this before. And it signals to me a lack of belief in the recruiting that your team has done along the offensive line. I don't know if that means to me, Blake, that they don't have faith in the current group of guys that were coming up. And I don't know if I should have faith in a team that is starting 3 new players.
I mean, their interior offensive line, though, I understand what you're saying. But, Joe, can we just be blunt? Down the stretch, I don't think they played well at all. I think that was the reason that –
disagree.
I think that was the reason that Penn State did what they did. I think it was the reason that they ultimately failed in the second time the way that they did. It's not like they were lost to Ohio State. It is what it is. John, they got blown out. They got their doors blown off. They got dominated. I mean, that shouldn't happen like that. I would say that I don't know if we've had a team like Oregon that's had to do this, though. A team that's been that damn good that's had to do this. We've seen Oklahoma had to do it. We saw Texas under Sark early have to do it, and it really hurt them. That's why when Kelvin Banks as a freshman comes in, he starts immediately. We've seen some teams do it. We haven't seen many that have had success with it. Hardly nobody's had success with it. Like literally talking about Oklahoma, they did it last year, and Joe, they got their doors literally blown off every game. I mean, like it was bad. I don't know if that happens at Oregon. I know that they probably feel that their interior offensive line will get better. We'll see there. Joe, does the massive departures at DB worry you at all? I know you bring in Thieneman, but Thieneman's one dude.
Well, okay, you're losing Jabbar Muhammad, and like, what else am I like really? I'm not. It's not like I'm losing a future top 10 pick, first round pick. Like I'm not. I don't know. I'm not freaking out at secondary.
Mean, it doesn't matter if they're first or second round.
I'm more worried about their defensive line, if anything. Like the defensive line, you're losing 3 starters.
But see, here's the thing with them. Are you not going to develop the 3 5-stars that you recruited there in
that's
year
the
2?
Answer to that question. That's the answer to that question.
You know, like, but I don't know. I do not know if that's what they've done at DB. I mean, they did it this year. Maybe a freshman can come in and step up. I don't know. But look, there are question marks around Oregon now. And I know that we have a massive Oregon fan base in here, and we love them to death. But we're not going to sugarcoat this for you. I mean, look, I guess we'll see there. I love their additions. I mean, Oregon just feels like a place to me, Joe, for what it's worth, that I just don't see them falling outside of 10-2. Like, regardless of what happens. Now, we'll talk about their schedule in just a moment. I mean, their 2 biggest games, I don't know. I think it's up in the air.
They have a very favorable schedule that I think is like, we'll get to that in 1 second. But my final thought of just like looking at their roster and the expectations, I think that it is critical that they're bringing back Mateo Uyunglele, who has the potential to be one of the best defensive linemen in the country. The fact that they've gotten multiple 5-stars, former 5-stars that were transfers, Evan Stewart and Dante Moore, that are stepping up at key positions, quarterback and wide receiver. But to address like the question that I'm putting out there of like, hey, you brought in all these portal guys and they're all supposed to contribute in roles that you're losing all conference players. What is going to happen there? I don't feel overly worried because they're not just putting together a ragtag group of randos. They have put together a group of traitsy, athletic, and potentially dominant playmakers that were important for their teams. Guys that were highly sought after for a reason. Dylan Thieneman I have talked very highly of, and I think that he is going to be a leadership presence, an instincts presence in the back end of that defense, playing strong safety. And he's only going to get better not having to do everything like he was doing at Purdue. And Isaiah World is an enormous behemoth who should be a good starting tackle if they can develop him like they developed Josh Connerly and a Johnny Cornelius. Pregnon's a good starter. I know USC fans lose their shit when you bring him up because he left, but he's going to a better program and he's going to contribute for a team that's going to be competing for a national title this year. And outside of that, like Mekhi Hughes, we've talked very highly of Mekhi Hughes and how good of a running back he is. And he might even be the best running back that they've had over the last 3 years, better than Jordan James and better than Bucky Irving. So I bring the question up at the beginning of this segment to round it out with, yeah, they've got a lot to replace, and going into the portal to replace those players is sometimes a scary approach, but if someone's done it right, it's them. They're not desperately going after guys with character issues or players who couldn't start on other rosters like Florida State did a year ago.
Bingo. When other programs do it, you're like, uh-oh. When Oregon does it, you're like, uh-oh.
Florida State did it with a bunch of backups from Alabama and Georgia, and they stunk. Not a good example in this conversation.
But
that too.
I do need to see them have a weapon on the outside. I'm not sold on Dante Moore yet, and nor why should I be? Anybody that comes in here and goes, dog, he was a 5-star, he did this. You at that position, you excuse me, you got to prove yourself too. Kid can be a Heisman Trophy winner for all I know. But
you say that now, he'll go on to win the Heisman.
Well, that's why I literally said it in there. He might, for all I know, he could go in there and win the Heisman. What I do feel like, though, I just don't know if Evan Stewart is a true number one. You are here. It's a bad combination though in some senses. You got a new offensive line that doesn't have cohesion. You got new wide receivers that you need to break in. You bring in Malik Benson. You got some young talented freshmen. How quickly can they pick it up? If anybody else did that in the country, you'd be worried for them. Joe, as we look at their schedule, your thoughts when you go down their schedule.
Yeah, so to rip through this, they host Montana State, who is replacing a very important core of starters that got them to the FCS National Championship
No
game.
one knows more about FCS football than you. I'm sorry.
No, I'm just pointing that out that like this isn't a trap game. It's not going to be. They're starting a new quarterback. There's a lot of turnover on their team. Versus Oklahoma State, they host Oklahoma State. Alan Bowman is not there for his 10th season. They go to Northwestern. They host Oregon State. They go to Penn State. Bye week. At home versus Indiana. Travel to New Jersey versus Rutgers. Back home against Wisconsin. Bye week. At Iowa versus Minnesota versus USC. And then at Washington. So there's quite a bit of travel. And I think that the biggest standout to me about their schedule, Blake, is that they do not see Ohio State. They do not see Michigan. But they still have to battle it out with USC, Indiana, Penn State, and Washington, which will all be formidable opponents.
Brother, this is light.
It's an easy schedule. It's not as easy as Penn State's, but it is an easy schedule.
Yeah. So let me ask you this question. This is not me talking because I'm just going to point this question out. You know what the narrative of Oregon's going to be, huh?
What?
Who have they played?
Well, I would argue, depending on how. Well, if they lose to Penn State, they're not going to have many good opportunities after that.
Because Penn State. No, I'm not going to accept that because they're going on the road. Okay, literally, Ohio State went on the road last year and lost to Oregon. If anybody should know, it would be Oregon. But Joe, Penn State might be the number one team in the country when they go up into Happy Valley.
Right.
So you lose to the number one team in the country? No, I don't think, and let's just say it's a 3-point game. No one's going to say that. But, Joe, what I'm saying is at the end of the year, say you have another team in the Big Ten that faced 5 ranked opponents, okay, and they're 10-2. I mean, when you go based off of comparison and seeding, I mean, this is light, brother. This is light as shit.
They had not the same schedule, but they had a similarly easy schedule, and they won in that home situation against Ohio State, which helped carry them. They beat Ohio State, and then they had the best resume, having that nice win against Ohio State for many weeks, and then there was no moving them because they just kept winning games. I think that the difficult circumstance of having to travel to Penn State.
Sorry.
No, I was going to say, when you have to go to Penn State, and we talked about this yesterday, I give the edge significantly to Penn State because they have a returning core, a better returning core, and it is a cross-country trip that is also apparently very hard to fly into that airport. So that is just something to pay attention to, that like this is not an easy trip to go to Penn State.
Gavin says, Blake, you better give that exact same response to Indiana. This is a harder schedule.
This is a harder schedule than the Indiana schedule.
It's a harder schedule than the Indiana one. But here's the thing. They went 10-2. They got blown out by the 2 ranked opponents that they played. Joe, there's not a ranked opponent on here besides Penn State.
They were 11-1. They were 11-1.
Right? No,
they were 11.
They lost to Penn State. No, they lost 2, correct?
Dude,
or was it just Ohio State that they lost to?
My mind is screwed over from like just
maybe I'm thinking
throwing away all the information from last year. No, they were 11-1. Their other loss was to Notre Dame.
Okay. Oh, okay. So they were 11.
The problem was that they played all the bad teams in the Big Ten that year.
So was Oregon.
Well, Oregon gets to face what's hopefully going to be a better USC team. Washington, we've talked about, is going to be a lot more competitive, and we're probably going to.
So they're playing one ranked opponent. I mean,
Indiana's ranked at the current moment, and Washington will probably finish the year ranked.
Okay, I'm not giving you Washington. Stop. 2. I don't think Washington.
Why wouldn't you give me why? I think that they are. I think Washington's going to finish.
I'm not going.
We're going to do that. We're going to do that preview, and you're going to be changing your mind. We already looked at the Jonah Coleman pictures.
Oh God, yeah, I remember that.
This isn't a cakewalk questionable schedule.
Okay, now
this is not an easy one, but it's not like I wouldn't give this as like a 1 out of 10. I would give this a 5.
Compared to every other ranked opponent that will be in conference championship weekend. Take their schedule versus the schedule you just saw. Who would you take?
Wait, say that again. I don't know why that didn't register.
Let's just say that there's 8 conference champions or 8 conference champion contenders. Okay. And we're in the last week before we get into the playoff, and it's championship weekend for the conferences. Oregon's going to have one of the lighter schedules of all those teams that you'll see in that championship weekend.
I haven't looked at any of the other schedules, so I can't say that with certainty. And also, Penn State's schedule is equally as light. They don't play Michigan next year. Oh, no, wait. I think they have Ohio State and Oregon.
Yeah, they have Ohio State and Oregon.
No, wait. No, they don't. Wait one second. Let me pull that back
Penn
up.
State. Penn State Oregon goes to Penn State, and Penn State goes to Ohio
they do.
State.
Yeah,
Yes,
they do. They do go to Ohio State. Yes, but the Penn State schedule is technically harder. I don't completely accept that notion. So I think with this schedule, you have to go 11-1 to remove any concern of if they belong in the playoff or not. I think that there's enough challenges on here. A 10-2 season still gets them into the playoff.
I'm not going down that road with you.
Really? Come on.
No, they're going to play one ranked opponent, one quality ranked opponent.
They're going to play. Indiana will be ranked at the time that they play. I mean, Eric will be ranked at the end of the year.
You know good and damn well what I'm trying to say. Like,
this is
okay. How about this? Let's throw up Ohio State's schedule, brother. They're going to face two top 4 teams in the country. They got Texas coming into town. They got to go to Penn State.
Michigan and Penn State.
And Michigan. So,
they host Penn State. They host Penn State.
Excuse me. Okay, so they got both big games at home. Okay, whatever. Let's not act as if having 2 top 4 teams on your schedule is not a massive deal. It is a drastic deal. So, by the way, I mean, again, as I'm saying, when I look at that versus the other potential conference champions, this will be one of the more lighter ones. Your ceiling might be 11-1, 12-0. But because of this schedule, 10-2 is not created equally to me in your own. Hold on, before y'all say SEC, I'm literally talking about your own conference in Ohio State. Joe, let me ask you this question. Let's say both of them are 10-2 at the end of the year. Ohio State's lost.
Put both of them in. I would put
auto buys that Greg said he wants.
Both 10-2. I'd put both 10-2 Oregon, Ohio State. If there was Oregon, Ohio State, Penn State, I'd put all 3 in. I would keep out any 3-loss SEC team. They would get completely cast aside, and I'd keep out any 3-loss. I'm not talking to you. I'm just talking in general. And I would keep out any 3-loss Big Ten team. And I would only put in 1 Big 12 team and 1 ACC team, and I would be very satisfied with that projection. You know good and damn well what I'm saying is true. I understand what you're saying, and I'm not completely rejecting the notion, but I'm pointing out that the schedule will prove to be more difficult than it looks at the current moment. I'm not saying that it is a difficult schedule. Not what I'm saying at all. I'm not trying to claim that like this is a 9 on the scale of 10 and they're just really going through it. And if they go 10-2, that they're an elite team. Not what I'm trying to argue. Not at all. But by the end of the year, a win over Washington is going to look better. A win over USC is going to look better than people think. A win over Indiana is going to look like a good win. Oklahoma State's always a question of how good and competitive they're going to be. They could be one of the top teams in the Big 12. We don't know. They're always a damn wild card. I'm not. What's that Notre Dame schedule look like? Is it lighter? Because they got Arkansas. Yeah, they got Miami and A&M. Yeah, and Arkansas. How about that? Okay. See, even Notre Dame's playing some big boys. You got to go down to that.
Woo! Pig, suey, Razorback.
I'm debating going to that game because I think
I will tell you this: you would. Well, if Arkansas is winning, it will be a great time. If Sam Pittman is fired by then, it might even be a better time.
Well, I'm going there to watch Notre Dame beat them. I mean, I got to see Sam Pittman's honkers in person, so I get you got to.
God bless America, Joe. Come
before he gets fired.
I had to lose my honkers. Your boy was getting some honkers around here.
You need to put Sam Pittman on.
That is true. Last thing for me with Oregon before we move to this last piece here. Dude, I will say this now. At the end of the year, if we're looking at that defensive line, Ian Breland, Gray, Elijah Rushing. Joe, this is normally when look. Here's a hot take for your ass. This is normally when Kirby's got his best defenses, when he has a massive class of DTs. They go into year 2. It's normally when they lock shit down now. I'm just going to throw that shit out there. So, all right, they're my sleeper defense of the year. And I know that, Blake, oh my God. But no,
I don't disagree.
Well, if you understand the context, if I just came out, Joe, and put on Twitter, Oregon defensively is my sleeper defense of the year. Everybody like, well, of course, Oregon's always good defensively. The context would have to be added into that. That D-line might be something special. All right.
Well, wait, before we move on really quickly, notice how they didn't bring in – they brought in one defensive tackle transfer.
And a guy that recruited him at Georgia is there.
Bingo.
Right. Like, I
the
mean –
D-line's going to be good, man. It's going to be a good D-line.
Well, let's just say hypothetically, for the current moment, that he gets enough out of Bear Alexander that we should. Breland's still in there now.
Yeah.
Elijah Rushing is still there now. And Gray is still there now.
There's a lot of talent.
There's a shitload of talent. Joe, we saw this before. Hold on. We saw this before. You ready? Kirby's first national title. In a lot of ways, it's similar. It's whole secondary gone. You bring in an elite safety. You have redshirted freshmen / sophomores that were all 5 stars coming in on your defensive line in year 2. Does any of this ring a bell? It does sound like Oregon to me. By the way, before we talk about quarterbacks, Stetson Bennett. Okay, like I mean, oh, by the way, I mean a former 5-star player came in as a freshman and locked down. That being Brock Bowers. Is that DK Moore? I don't know.
There are similarities to be had.
There are similarities.
It's a good point.
I'm just going to say that on April the 9th, if they do win a national title, I told you guys on April the 9th that they were going to win it.
I'm not going to let you claim that.
Oh, if that's the national narrative, if somebody ever publishes that, this is kind of what it looks like with Georgia. Oh, you best believe I'm coming. That's what she said. All right.
Yeah, our good friends over at MyBookie, we've got the Masters this weekend, and it is always an exciting event to watch. And what better way to make it more entertaining than placing a bet on MyBookie? Golf's most iconic tournament tees off this week, and MyBookie is the ultimate spot to cash in on every swing, upset, and Sunday charge. Outrights, matchups, live betting, long shot bombs with MyBookie money bag. If there's an edge, you'll find it here. And not only that, but this weekend also coincides with UFC 314. If you're new to MyBookie, I've got something you're going to want to take advantage of. Deposit any amount, $50 to $2,000, and get half matched instantly with promo code MM50. No waiting, and you don't need to bet to receive it. Just bonus cash right away. If you've got to read it on Augusta or just looking to take advantage of a Michael Chandler boost for UFC 314, now's the time to fire. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere, only with MyBookie.